Young billionaire gives $20 to girl cleaning cars. Her words and photo freeze him in shock. The late afternoon sun beat down mercilessly on the parking lot of the downtown shopping center, creating waves of heat that shimmered above the asphalt. David Harrison pulled his black Tesla into a spot near the main entrance, the cool air conditioning a stark contrast to the oppressive summer weather outside. At 28, David had built Harrison Technologies into a billion-dollar empire, but success had come with its own weight of responsibility and isolation. He sat for a moment in the climate-controlled comfort of his car, checking emails on his phone and postponing the inevitable step into the sweltering heat. Through his tinted windows, he watched the steady flow of shoppers hurrying between their air-conditioned cars and the cool refuge of the mall, most of them moving as quickly as possible to escape the brutal temperature. That's when he noticed. A young girl, perhaps 16 or 17, was methodically working her way through the parking lot with a spray bottle, rags, and a small bucket. She wore faded jeans and a white t-shirt that was already soaked with perspiration. Her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail that had come loose in several places. Despite the heat, she moved with steady determination, carefully cleaning each car's windshield and side mirrors. David watched, fascinated by her work ethic. Most people her age were inside the air-conditioned mall, spending money on clothes and food court meals. This girl was out here in the blazing sun, earning money the hard way. There was something admirable about her persistence, something that reminded him of his own early days when he had worked multiple jobs to fund his first tech startup. He stepped out of his car, immediately feeling the assault of the humid air, and walked toward where the girl was working. She was focused intently on a blue sedan, scrubbing at a stubborn spot on the windshield with the kind of attention to detail that spoke of personal pride in her work. "Excuse me," David called softly, not wanting to startle her. The girl looked up, and David was struck by her green eyes, bright and intelligent, but carrying a weariness that seemed too heavy for someone so young. Her face was flushed from the heat, and beads of sweat dotted her forehead, but she managed a polite smile. "Hi there," she said, wiping her hands on her already damp t-shirt. "Would you like me to clean your car? I do a really thorough job. Windows, mirrors, and I can wipe down the dashboard too if you want." David was touched by her professionalism, despite her obvious youth and the harsh conditions. "That would be great, thank you. How much do you charge?" $5 for the basic wash, 10 if you want the inside clean too," she replied, already moving toward his Tesla with her supplies. As she began working on his car, David found himself curious about her story. "I'm David," he said, leaning against a nearby lamppost to stay out of her way. "What's your name?" "Emma," she replied, without looking up from the windshield she was meticulously cleaning. "Emma Harrison." David felt a jolt of surprise at the shared last name, but Harrison was common enough that he didn't think too much of it. "That's a nice name. Do you do this every day?" Emma paused in her work for a moment. "Every day I can. Weekends and after school during the school year. My grandmother is sick, and the medical bills are pretty expensive. I'm trying to help out however I can." The matter-of-fact way she delivered this information, without any trace of self-pity or request for sympathy, impressed David deeply. Here was a teenager sacrificing her free time and comfort to help support her family, approaching the work with dignity and pride. "That's very admirable of you, Emma," David said sincerely. "Your grandmother is lucky to have someone who cares so much." Emma's face softened at the mention of her grandmother. "She raised me after my parents died when I was little. She's the most important person in my life. I'd do anything for her." As Emma worked, David found himself drawn into conversation with her. She was articulate and thoughtful, speaking about her plans to attend community college while continuing to work, her dreams of becoming a nurse so she could help people the way the hospital staff had helped her grandmother. There was a maturity and wisdom in her words that spoke of someone who had faced real challenges and emerged stronger for it. "You know," Emma said as she finished cleaning his side mirrors. You remind me of someone. I can't quite place it, but there's something familiar about you. David smiled. I get that sometimes. I guess I have one of those faces. Emma stepped back to admire her work, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a worn wallet. From it, she extracted a small, creased photograph that she handled with obvious care. This is why I work so hard, she said, showing David the picture. This is my grandmother when she was younger, with my grandfather and my dad. David took the photograph, and the world seemed to tilt on its axis. The image showed a beautiful young woman with familiar green eyes, standing next to two men. One was clearly much older, presumably the grandfather Emma had mentioned, but the other man, younger and bearing a striking resemblance to the woman. Beside him made David's breath catch in his throat. The young man in the photograph looked exactly like David himself. Emma, David said, his voice barely above a whisper. What was your father's name? Michael Harrison, Emma replied, watching David's face with growing concern as all the color drained from it. He was my grandmother's only child. He and my mom died in a car accident when I was 5. Why? Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. David's hands shook as he continued to stare at the photograph. Michael Harrison, his brother Michael, who had run away from home at 17 after a terrible fight with their father, Michael, whom David had spent years searching for after he became successful. Michael, who had died without David ever knowing he had a daughter. Emma, David said, his voice thick with emotion. I need to ask you something, and I need you to think carefully. What was your grandmother's maiden name? Emma looked puzzled, but answered readily. Margaret Chen. She married my grandfather Robert Harrison when she was 22, but I don't understand why. And your father, David interrupted gently. Did he ever mention having a younger brother? Someone named David? Emma's eyes widened as the pieces began to fall into place. My grandmother sometimes talks about him when she's having her good days. She says my father had a little brother, but they lost touch years ago. She always regretted that they never reconciled before. She stopped, staring at David with dawning recognition. Oh my God, you're him, aren't you? You're my Uncle David? David nodded, tears streaming down his face as he looked at this remarkable young woman who was his brother's daughter, his niece, working in a parking lot to support their shared grandmother while he lived in luxury just miles away. Emma, I've been looking for your father for over 10 years. I never knew he had died. Never knew about you or that our grandmother was still alive. The last address I had for Michael was from 15 years ago. Emma's own eyes filled with tears as the magnitude of the discovery hit her. My grandmother talks about you sometimes. She says you were Michael's baby brother, that you two were inseparable when you were little. She always wondered what happened to you, whether you were safe and happy. I need to see her, David said urgently. Emma, I need to meet my grandmother, and I need to take care of both of you. The medical bills, your college plans, everything. Your family, and I've been looking for family my whole adult life. Emma wiped her tears with the back of her hand, leaving streaks in the dust on her cheeks. She's at Sunset Manor, the assisted, living place on Oak Street. But David, Uncle David, she might not remember you. She has good days and bad days now. That doesn't matter, David said firmly. What matters is that I found you, that I found her. Emma, you never have to clean another car in a parking lot unless you want to. You're going to college. Your grandmother is going to get the best medical care available, and most importantly, you're going to know that you have family who loves you. As they drove together to Sunset Manor, Emma clutching the precious photograph that had revealed their connection, David marveled at the strange workings of fate. He had given a hard-working teenager $20 for cleaning his car, expecting nothing more than a spotless windshield. Instead, he had found the family he had been searching for his entire adult life. At the assisted living facility, Margaret Harrison, now Margaret Chen, again after her second husband's death, sat in her room looking through photo albums. When David walked in behind Emma, her aged face lit up with a recognition that transcended her illness. "David?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "My sweet little David? I always knew you'd find your way home." As David embraced his grandmother for the first time in over 15 years, Emma watched with tears of joy streaming down her face. The girl who had been working alone to support her sick grandmother now stood surrounded by family, knowing that she would never face life's challenges alone again. "Thank you," David whispered to Emma over their grandmother's head. "Thank you for showing me that photograph. Thank you for leading me home." Emma smiled through her tears. "Thank you for stopping to see a girl cleaning cars. Sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them." That evening, as they sat around Margaret's bedside sharing stories and filling in the missing years,